Imagine being able to hold, like, the literal blueprints to the modern world in your head.
Right.
Like, actually seeing complex machines running, testing them for wear and tear, all before a single piece of metal is even cut.
Yeah, it sounds like pure sci-fi.
Exactly. But that is exactly what Nikola Tesla did. So how did he do it? Today's deep dive takes a stack of sources, biographical notes, modern neuroscience, behavioral psychology, and we are decoding his ultimate internal operating system.
Our mission today is to look at his famous advice, which was to think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. And we're trying to take that out of the realm of just abstract physics.
Right, because the sources show this wasn't just some quirky theory he had.
No, not at all. It's a really specific, teachable framework for engineering your own potential.
So let's start with the blueprint, which is vibration. Now, I feel like this word usually gets hijacked by pop culture manifestation.
Oh, absolutely. Like wishing really hard for a sports car and hoping it appears.
Right. But the sources bridge Tesla's view of the mind as an electrical receiver with hard science.
Yeah.
Because thoughts aren't abstract. I mean, they are literal, measurable electrical impulses that an EEG machine can actually map.
Exactly. Your internal state is a physiological reality. I mean, the most striking evidence we looked at was that Cleveland Clinic study.
Oh, that study was wild.
Yeah. Participants who did literally nothing but mentally visualize themselves doing finger exercises, well, they actually increased their physical strength by 22%.
Wait, 22% without even moving a muscle?
Yeah, the mental rehearsal alone triggered actual physiological adaptation.
That is incredible. And, instead of the old cliche of tuning a radio dial, this whole mechanism actually reminds me a lot of a social media algorithm.
How do you mean?
Well, when you visualize a goal, you are literally training a bundle of neurons in your brainstem called the reticular activating system, the RS.
Oh, right, the brain's internal filter.
Exactly. You are changing the code so your hardware acts like a bouncer. It filters out the noise and lets in the resources and opportunities that were always physically there.
But cognitively invisible to you before.
Yes.
That algorithm comparison is spot on. So by sustaining a specific mental image, like an elevated vibration, you program the RAS to highlight what actually matters to you.
Right.
But a blueprint alone doesn't build a house. I mean, if your brain is now spotting all these opportunities, you still need the architecture to capture them.
Okay.
And that requires the steady rhythm of frequency.
Which essentially just means repetition.
Yes, but this is exactly where the sources warn us about the valley of disappointment.
Oh, the lag time.
Right. It's that biological lag time where you're putting it in the frequency, doing the reps, but you're seeing absolutely zero external results.
Which is so frustrating. Why does that happen?
Because the initial changes are microscopic. Every single time you repeat a skill, your brain wraps the involved nerve fibers in this fatty insulation called myelin.
So it's not magic, it's literal biology.
Exactly. The myelin just makes the electrical signals of your new habits travel faster and faster.
So you are physically rewiring the circuitry until that clunky conscious effort just becomes unconscious excellence.
Belong.
But wait, I have to push back here a little bit.
Yeah.
If I am locking myself into these highly regimented, repetitive routines just to build myelin, doesn't that crush spontaneous creativity? I mean, doesn't genius require some chaos?
You would think so, right? But the sources present a really fascinating paradox here. Structure actually creates freedom.
How so?
Well, by automating mundane decisions, like when to wake up, what to eat, when to work, you completely eliminate decision fatigue.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, Tesla's incredibly strict routines preserved his finite cognitive energy. That actually liberated his mind to wander into those impossible, world-changing ideas.
Okay, that makes sense. So the myelin's built, the routine is set. But what happens when that strict routine inevitably leads to friction or like burnout?
Right.
You still need raw force to push these ideas into reality.
Right.
You need the final piece, which is energy.
And in physics, just like in human behavior, overcoming initial inertia demands the highest energy cost.
The friction of starting is always the hardest part.
Always.
Which really makes me view Tesla's infamous sleep schedule completely differently. Because people always claim he slept 2 hours a night, which, by the way, is terrible advice for anyone.
Oh, horrible advice. Please don't do that.
Right. But the sources detail how he supplemented those 2 hours with intense hypnagogic rest.
That twilight state right before deep sleep.
Exactly. From a neurobiology standpoint, you're getting this massive surge of alpha and theta brainwaves, which is incredibly restorative for problem solving.
It's a really highly specific type of mental recovery. But even then, physical and mental rest alone just aren't enough to sustain massive momentum. The texts point to purpose as the ultimate apex fuel.
Right, because purpose acts almost like a superconductor. When your actions align with deep meaning, the cognitive friction just drops.
Yes, you don't have to force yourself to work anymore. The work actually pulls you forward.
It becomes an inexhaustible energy source.
It does, but there is a massive trap here that we need to mention.
What's that?
Perpetual preparation. You can have the vibration, you can have the frequency and the purpose, but you can still spend years reading just one more book or taking one more course.
Oh, I am totally guilty of that.
Right, we all are. But action is the actual point of alchemy here. It is the physical release of that potential energy. You have to move before the conditions feel perfect, because readiness is honestly a biological illusion.
Wow. So for you listening, the code to extraordinary achievement basically comes down to this. Vibration sets your direction by filtering reality.
Yeah.
Frequency builds the neurological architecture through habit. And energy is the action that forces it into existence.
Exactly. You're not just passively existing in the world anymore. You are actively programming how you interact with it.
Which leaves us with one final thought from the fringes of Tesla's life.
Yeah.
He became so highly attuned to these invisible forces that he later claimed he could physically feel the vibrations of a thunderstorm hundreds of miles away.
That is just wild to think about.
It really is. It makes you wonder. Once you master this internal operating system and truly tune your own frequency, where does the boundary between your mind and the outside world actually end?